If there ever was an ideology that was immune to the truth, it would be gender theory. As you know, started by John Money. And I'm not going to go into how evil a man he was and the experiments he conducted. Well, kind of. My point is, actually, that the experiments he did failed. He claimed he could productively raise two sets, a twin boy, one with a botched circumcision, into a girl because he was a behavioralist. It was the thing at the time. Ended in tragedy. They killed themselves. The experiment failed. And yet, from that, we treated him like he was a genius, and gender ideology was born. So in its inception, it is immune to facts and logic, let's say. So the way you defeat gender ideology is not going to be with a calm, reasoned debate of like, here's all the flaws in the thing. We've done that. A lot of people are doing it. It's good. You can read James Lindsay's cynical theories. All of it, good stuff. But I'm going to make the case on why gender ideology will be the last straw that will break the camel's back, so to say, and bring down this sort of critical race thinking. Gender ideology used to be, let's say, a niche issue, just for academics, and then it bled out into the main sphere, and you saw a lot of gender-critical feminists. Feminists obviously immediately saw the problem with dangerous men can self-identify as a woman. If you just say you're a woman, you get into women's spaces, locker rooms, rape crisis shelters, as they do in Canada, prisons, men who are violent criminals say, yeah, I'm a woman, and then get into prisons to sexually abuse the women there and essentially run the joint. Bad. But the media can ignore that because, hey, it doesn't affect everyone. Well, now it does. There are three major issues in every election. In 95% of the time, the three major issues in an election are healthcare, the economy, education. And we've now hit the point where the gender theory has bled out of the universities and into not just the high schools, the middle schools, but the elementary schools. It's all over. Now, you might not know this if your name is Justin Trudeau or Chrystia Freeland, but I have some pretty shocking news for you. Parents really care about their kids, and they're not going to stop that anytime soon. It's actually a historical constant for the most part. Parents tend to care about the kids. So now that this has gone into the education system at the lower levels, the place where parents are still involved, like no one's mom is reading your university curriculum unless you have a crazy helicopter parent mom, right? What's happened in the university, that's time of independence, skate by. When it makes it into the third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, people are going to be upset. And when you teach very radical gender ideology stuff, especially, the trans, non-binary stuff, where kids are legitimately getting mutilated and having medical experiments performed on them for the, let's say, self-esteem of a few crazy radicals to be validated, parents see the danger. And they also see that this nonsense is being taught to the kids. And listen, a lot of families are still going to be religious. And you have, of course, the new Muslim component to this that people are waking up to. You always have Christians, Jews, Sikhs, anyone with, strong to moderate religious beliefs is going to look at radical gender theory and be like, what? Not in the schools. You might have corrupted the institutions to the point where most of the teachers' college is more indoctrinating than in an elementary school. But you have a good amount of parents that didn't go through this and now will start to push back. This is also an education issue now. It's not a fringe culture war issue. It's not, this is where, the PPC is going to love this, the peer supporters probably not, but this is kind of where the PPC is becoming a bit more mainstream, being kind of focused on issues like this, and immigration works better. But the PPC's fault is they don't frame this as an education issue. They frame it as a culture war issue, which it's not. And this will eventually happen because of entropy and because there's enough smart people on the political right or just opposed to this that will understand that framing this as an education issue will get more people involved because people care about education. So how will this bring down? Alternative media, I think, is a big thing. Back in 2015, when Ontario tried to pass the inception of the radical sex ed curriculum, there was massive protest. I remember I was working as a tour guide on those red buses that go around. We went by Queen's Park, the Ontario provincial capital, and there was a massive protest, and it was mostly Muslim. 2015, mostly Muslims protesting. How do you know, Daniel, you're a racist? Like 90% of the women wearing hijabs or niqabs, right? If they were in kippas, Jews, people with crucifixes tend to be Christian. huge Muslim contingent there. And I remember the Toronto Star covered it, and they found like the three white people and took a picture of them at an angle to blur out the rest of the crowd, because they want to protect this sort of intersection ideology where we pretend that, Islam, gay, black, all the same thing. It's like, no, people are mostly the same, but have, distinct cultural differences. And the spoiler alert, the views of the Muslim community and the views of the LGBTQIA2AAS plus community don't always jive. So the, visual representation of what the left has tried to, let's say, is diverse, is going to undermine a lot of this intersectional stuff. So you have a major blow to this. And the only way this ideology has been able to be sort of held together is the, let's say, institutional gaslighting, where you have the media and the political class all sort of in line, either too afraid or ideologically committed to the cause to cover this thing. And alternative media has now grown to the point where, anyone can kind of do it. People are all filming this protest, and you can't just lie about what's going on. Now, you can lie about, the specific Muslim parents on the streets, and, I love the Dina Sharif, like the so-called Muslims. Like, she's like pink hair thing, yelling about trans, being like, I'm a real Muslim. Sure you are, Dina. You have a good, let's say, spicy viral take to this, right? Oh, the Muslims have joined the conservatives, right? Because Muslims and conservatives have been pitted against each other for a long time, because the left has done this whole, the conservatives are so racist, Islamophobic, they're going to come and eat you up, blah, 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 vote for us, right? But now the vote for us and the liberals is like, okay, we love you Muslims, just none of your core values. Get rid of all of that and become, non-binary, and you can join. And this obviously was never going to work. So this has been, you could say 20 years in the making, I'd say 1,400 years in the making. It's not going to work there. And it's going to draw attention. You have alternative media, so it cannot be ignored. And finally, it is an education issue. And once the Conservative Party wakes up, listen, they have to do 10,000 more focus groups and some polls, but I think within a few years, if the conversation shifts enough, the polling data will eventually detect it, and Pierre will wake up. This is an education issue. And framing it as an education issue will drive people out to vote, because parents care about what their kids learn. And once the first one of these dominoes falls in gender ideology, queer theory, intersectional whatever, critical race theory, Middle East, whatever it is, once the first one goes down, the rest will go and follow eventually. So, in closing, the left bit off more than it could chew here. It was blind to the inevitable problems of intersectionality. It was never addressed. They stuck their head in the sand on these issues. And it's now bled into every aspect of society, to the point where this is a major election issue. And you can also say, partially it might be healthcare too, but not on the whole, more niche there. But if the conservatives figure out how to frame this as a matter of education and parental rights, all this gender ideology stuff will be done within 15 years. I know it's a long time, but it's come in, we have to get it out.